Welcome to Conversations Live, where we bring you the best in music, books, entertainment, and more. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now celebrating 16 years of broadcasting, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again, both for our radio audience and those tuning in online through our various affiliates. We're glad you all could be with us as well. I was just saying to my next guest, it's hard to believe it was 5 years ago when I first interviewed Jared Cohn. He's an individual who's been able to tell great stories through film. At the time we were talking about his film, Buddy Hutchins, I met him for my first time in 2016 when I made my first trip to Los Angeles. During that time, he was celebrating a lot of great work he was doing, in particular a film I saw called Wishing for a Dream. But 2020 is a very big year for Jared, and a powerful story he's able to share with you that I think people literally around the world will really appreciate. The film is called Street Survivors, the true story of the Lynyrd Skynyrd plane crash. It's coming out on June 30th. Had a chance to watch it, so we'll be able to talk about that. Also, what this journey's been like for Jared to do work that he loves and, of course, share that with all of you, and why this was a story that he is so excited to be able to share with you all. Jared, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks again for having me. It's a great honor to be on the show and talk about the film.
Well, look, man, the honor is definitely all mine. I am so proud of you and all the great things you've been able to do. I mean, since our first conversation 5 years ago, you're a person who I knew then was passionate about what you did. The stories you told are so layered. Definitely Street Survivors is no different. So I want to begin there because when people hear the group Lynyrd Skynyrd, of course, Jared, there are so many great memories they have of the music. Of course, there is the tragedy. But what was it like for you now to be able to share this story with the world?
You know, it was really great because the band was one of the best to ever do it of classic rock, and the characters and the story, and having the actual privilege of working with Artemis Pyle, who was on the plane that crashed. You know, I don't want to give any spoilers, but it is the plane crash. It's a famous rock and roll tragedy. But to be able to work with the actual guy and get to know him and hear his story and hear his pain, it was incredible. And then on top of that, which kind of goes hand in hand with the film because there are elements is this legal battle that went on for years. The film, it's well documented on the news and whatnot. But the film was banned. It was banned because we lost a court case over, and it was due to and then we appealed, and then we won, and now the film's able to finally come out, and we won on the grounds of the First Amendment rights, which just made this, and it was a federal court case, so it was such an emotional roller coaster of working on the film and researching and talking to the man who survived a plane crash, pulling bodies out of a wreckage, and then getting, and then finally finishing the film, and then as we're like on the last few days, they file this injunction, and now the film's banned, and it was a nightmare. It was like a beautiful fantasy dream turned nightmare turned back. And I went along. It took me for one hell of a ride, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, like every way. It affected me because I had put everything into it. But yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit because you mentioned a couple of things, ironically, Jared, that remind me again of our conversation about wishing for a dream. I mean, you were living that through this project with Street Survivors, and I think it goes to your love of telling stories, but also your willingness to fight for it. That was a part of Wishing for a Dream, even, that you were a part of and directed. So I want to talk about that. Why did you feel so passionate about it? Why did you feel as though this was something that you were not willing to let go?
About Street Survivors.
Right.
For Street Survivors, this was, to be honest, this was my biggest film I've ever done. major shout out and props to Cleopatra Entertainment, Cleopatra Records, and specifically Brian Pereira, the CEO and really great friend, of giving me this opportunity to make this film. This was, by far the largest budget, and he gave me this great opportunity, and I jumped on it. I jumped on it, and I believe that, and I still believe that that this film could sort of elevate me from where I'm at, because I've been in the entertainment industry almost 18, 19 years, grinding like a soldier in 1917, World War I, in the trenches, and here's a film that comes along that's so potent and powerful and a great opportunity, and I put my heart, soul, and everything, and I couldn't let it go. I couldn't let it go because, and I refused. I kept fighting and I kept fighting, and I couldn't get it out of my mind, and it did me so much harm. When we lost the case, and even when we first found out there was going to be a legal issue, it gave me so much anxiety. Every sip of, and the justice system, love it or hate it or whatever, it moves so slowly. So you find out, okay, they file for injunction. You can't do anything with the film until this court date. But this court date is months away. So during those months, I was just anxious. I was a wreck of anxious, thinking, oh my God, this film's never gonna come out, and it's all going to be all for nothing. Years of work, all for nothing. And then you finally find out the date, and the date is months away, and it's like, oh my God, I got to go through another few months of. So it's just this. It's like they almost intentionally want you to be like at your wit's end by the time the next plot point happens. But I couldn't let it go. And I admit, and it's no lie that I was a mess mentally and everything, because everything I had worked for and my chance of this film even being seen, and they wanted us to delete all the footage. I mean, it was they had frozen our Brian, the producer's, bank accounts, and they flew me out to New York to give a deposition, in front of a bunch of attorneys, and they were analyzing my text messages and emails. They really were just kind of stabbing at me any way they can, and subpoenaed me to court. And man, it was a nightmare. It was a living nightmare. They had spent over $1 million on legal fees attacking us, this independent film, and so that's why I couldn't let it go. And they were really mean. There was a woman, and I honestly am such the type of person that doesn't say anything bad, on any kind of platform about anybody, because I believe in diplomacy and just keep matters. But there's this particular woman, Judy Van Zandt, made my life hell, and she owns the estate, the Lynyrd Skynyrd estate, and she just fired on all fronts and to make my life hell. But eventually, she won, and then she lost. So she's just one hell of one character. If I sit here, I wouldn't. But I would still sit down and have a cup of coffee with her and talk with her, because at the end of the day, it's over. That would be great. I would jump at the chance.
Wow. Well, that says a lot about you, Jared. And I have to say, in hearing you talk about this, I'm sure a lot of creatives out there can feel the pain, can feel that struggle. But to know that you're able to, by what you now have been able to do, that you now are able to give other people hope. I want to talk about that when we kind of widen the perspective of your journey. We're going to come back to Street Survivors, of course, but I want to talk about what that's been like for you, because as you said, this is, the biggest project you've done. But do you feel as though everything has kind of led up to this, that all the hard work, all the dedication, all the blood, sweat, and tears has led up to what's about to happen now on June 30th?
You know, part of me would likes to think, yes, I believe so. I believe the universe, you know, and I've just been, I've just been grinding for so hard, and I'm just so grateful to be given this. And I know a lot of people have been grinding for much longer and haven't been given, you know, an opportunity like this, and may never, you know, be given sort of an opportunity like this. But it's hard to say, because I'd like to believe so, but at the same time, I know people, you know, right away sometimes, you know, because of nepotism or whatever have you, you know, just come into Los Angeles or wherever and are given great opportunities that are even better, bigger and better. But
Gotcha.
I do like to think that, you know, I worked hard enough to get to this point.
Right.
But I mean, the real answer is, you know, anything can happen at any time.
Hmm.
It's but as you know, yeah, and you talk to a lot of artists, so you know, it's. I'm sure they all kind of probably say similar things, but unless it's never really an easy road.
Yeah. Yeah. But I tell you, by hearing what you're saying, though, and now knowing that this film will see the light of day, it's definitely worth it. I want to say, for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. Excited to welcome back Jared Cohn to our program today. First appeared on this program 5 years ago. We met in person in 2016 in Los Angeles. Now he's gearing up for, as you heard him say, the biggest film of his career. Again, it's called Street Survivors. This is a film that's going to be available for you guys to be able to watch on June 30th. The true story of the Lynyrd Skynyrd plane crash. And the plane crash is, of course, the big part of this story. But what I had a chance to see when I was watching the film, Jared, and I'm a person who's all into relationships, right? And I love the fact that you're able to show the relationship of the group, the relationship with their fans, and more importantly, the relationship with the music. How important was that for you to tell the story of what really happened, you know, through Artemis Powell, but also to be able to share the effect this group has been able to have on the other members and on the world?
Very important, you know. I think the relationships. We live in a world of people around us and relationships, and it's often, you know, what do they think of me? Everyone's, you know, people are always very concerned, myself included, which is not a healthy thing. But, you know, there's benefits and pros and cons of, you know, what the interpretation is of ourselves on other people. So, you know, when you talk about sort of what is, you know, the meaning, the value of relationships, it really is everything, because you sort of have no sense of self unless you're sort of, you know, a very few in, you know, this sociopathical type of person, which there are benefits of that too. But at the end of the day, you know, the band loved each other. The fans loved the music, the message, and it was really like a family. And if I was able to portray that in any way, then I think, you know, effectively, then I, you know, did a somewhat of a decent job, I guess. But most importantly, Artemis. This is Artemis' story, because he's he's alive. He's a real person. He was involved in the film. So ultimately, you know, he was the most important audience member, because, you know, he's watching actors play him, an actor play him, right, and actors play his friends and wife or ex-wife, and so that was important. But yeah, I mean, you know, if the fans if people who see the film can experience any of that, then that would just be amazing.
Right. And I think, too, it's so interesting. This film takes place, of course, I mean, what we're able to see, of course, with the crash and everything. Everyone knows it was 1977. It's hard to believe I was 2 years old at that point, living in Mississippi at that particular time. But what I thought was so interesting, I mentioned to you before we began the segment, Jared, is that there are some very relevant things that come up in this film. One, of course, the symbolism of the group, and what Artemis says in the film about how some people look at them as being racist because of, the flag. And one of the things that's said to Artemis's character, and of course in the film, is it's about Southern pride. We hear that today in 2020. What is that like for you to know that you're telling this story, but it is really something that in many ways is ripped from the headlines when you think of some of the themes in it?
Yeah, it was very important. And going into this right away, I knew that racism and the use of the Confederate flag, which they did. Lynyrd Skynyrd is known. They've played many times with massive Confederate flags behind them, and then I dig deeper into it. And I learned, that most importantly that actually that was a marketing tool that their record label at the time, said, hey, look, if you really want to hit your fans, this is, use the Confederate flag as your symbol. But the band was never quite. They understood that, they thought that. They were aware. Everyone was aware that the usage of the Confederate flag, the rebel flag, the battle flag, Dixie flag, whatever there's many names, is a very it's a very strong symbol. And as they're pulling it from the government and everything. But to them, in the 70s in the South, it was. It stood to them in a completely different time. We're talking like 40 years ago, right, as Southern pride, and it wasn't. I mean, nowadays with there's a much different interpretation, and rightfully so. Even before everything that's going on, even 10, 15 years ago, people associated it with, the South and had, hints of racism in there. So it was important for me to address that as a filmmaker because, look, I'm a white Jewish guy from New York, and at the end of the day, this is not. I had to do a lot of homework and research to get into this and to understand it. But I after talking with Artemis and doing the research, like these guys were not racist. They hung out with people of all races. They were not. They were the farthest from. They were musicians and artists and. I'm sure there were, racist people, as there are racist people right now. But the music, the band, they were not racist. I mean, they were not racist people. Was there racism in the South back then? Yeah. Is there racism in the South right now? Yeah. I mean, it's terrible, and everything that's going on right now is great because it's shaking up, and but it's always it's the film ultimately. I wanted to address it, but I didn't want to make it about it. You know what I mean? Because it's right. But I did want to address it, and the fact that I was very cognizant of usage of the flag. There was only a few frames. It was important for me to address it and have it in the film, but not to an extent that someone's going to say, "Oh, Lynyrd Skynyrd, yeah, they were just a bunch of racist Southern, rockers." When that's very, very not true. they were ahead of their time, and unfortunately that was a marketing tool used by the record label, the same record label which screwed over Artemis Pyle by not helping him out when the plane crashed. So obviously they were all about the money. So for them,
right.
And I get it, if they're thinking, okay, we can put this flag behind them and sell more, to our crowd that listens to it, then we'll tell them to do that. So it was very money driven,
right.
that as a marketing tool for them.
For sure. Jared, I'm so happy for you. I'm so glad I had a chance to watch this film and now to be able to help share it with our audience here, because this is a film that whether you were a fan of Lynyrd Skynyrd as a group, I think if you are into powerful human interest stories, this is a film that will definitely speak to you on so many different levels, because it is about family. It is about friendship. It's about passion. When I see that scene of Artemis, with the broken down vehicle, I think there's so many creatives, Jared, that can relate to that feeling and not giving up, and doing what it takes to get to where you need to go. I think there's so much imagery and powerful, imagery in this film that all of us can really appreciate when it comes to pursuing our goals and dreams, and definitely want to encourage our audience to be able to go and see it. Again, we're talking about Street Survivors, the true story of the Lynyrd Skynyrd plane crash. It's out everywhere on June 30th. You guys definitely can go ahead and pre-order it through our partners at Amazon.com. You guys can pre-order it there. Jared, again, man, so excited for you. How can our audience stay connected with the updates for the film?
It's, June 30th, and I guess, if you search, either, Lynyrd Skynyrd movie, Jared Cohn, Lynyrd Skynyrd. There's been some good some reviews that have, been kind of coming out, and
right.
to keep up to date, you can find my Instagram. I'll be posting, or Facebook, I'll be posting things as they come out.
Mm-hmm.
Just do a search. IMDb, of course. That's more to keep up with the stuff I'm up to. But right. Definitely.
Well, look, man, congratulations again, Jared. Thank you so much for taking out this time. It means more than you know, and looking forward to our next chat together, man.
Yeah, me too. Thank you again for having me.
Hey, glad to do it, man. Definitely want to thank our good friends at October Coast Public Relations for setting up this chat today, and thank all of you for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live. Let's make today a great one. Take care.